In this video, I'm going to go much deeper into the problem validation space for our potential coming legal services industry SaaS product. That's likely to include also some competitive research, some research into pricing, figuring out what this thing may be worth if we want to bring it to market, as well as maybe even a name. We got to figure out what to call this thing. So stick around if any of that interests you while I'm building in public. If you don't know me, my name is Sean Boyce, and I've been building SaaS products for years as a bootstrapped solo founder. And now I'm building my next one in public with you, so you can follow my process closely and apply it to your SaaS project as well. So the objective for this step in the process is to figure out potentially what is the size of the opportunity in this market if we were to try to bring a better solution in the form of a SaaS product, solve those billing related challenges for the legal services industry. And if you missed the first video in the series, go back and watch that. That's around idea validation. And we talked a lot more about the problem we're planning to solve and how we're planning to solve it, at least so far in theory. I'll link to that video in the description. All right, so I'm back using Claude and I'm in the same project, but I've created a new chat. Now, one of the great things Claude does is if you create a project, it will be able to pull context from any of the chats that you've used so that it can better understand what progress you made thus far and help you kind of build from there. That's exactly what I'm planning to do. And I'm going to create probably a separate chat for each one of these videos that I'm creating so that I can better keep track of the steps that we're completing along the way. But I've got my prompt built in here and you can read that here. But again, I'm going to add this all to the guides and templates that I'm sharing with you. So by the end of the video, you know where you can go get that. There'll be a link in the description. So you don't necessarily need to pull this out of here, but just to kind of further explain it for you, what I am telling Claude is that now that we've got greater context for the problem that we want to solve and also some ideas around how we might want to solve it, we want to go a bit deeper. We want to understand how widespread this problem is, how common it is to better size up the opportunity a little bit. What I'm recommending that we do is we search across forums. I'm going to add a little bit more context here as well too, places like Reddit or Quora or whatever, anywhere where a lawyer or an owner of a law firm might hang out and collaborate online to talk about the problems they have and what they need to do to solve them so they can learn from others or just look for a general solution across the web. I've also asked it to kind of rank the problems that it finds. So I'm not really trying to bias the AI here. I want it to look for the top 5 problems and see whether or not ours is in that list or somewhere close to one of the options that are in that list, because this may be a problem we're solving, but it may not be the biggest problem we're solving. So I want to kind of see how it stacks up against other feedback that lawyers have provided talking about these things across the web. So I'm going to fire this off, let it do its thing, and then we're going to review the results. All right, so we got our results back here, and man, it hit the nail right on the head. I'm telling you guys, you really need to leverage this tech as much as possible for this kind of stuff because it will save you tremendous amount of time, give you some incredible insight very early on in the process. So Claude does this thing from time to time when it's organizing some output for you. It will show you what it did, and it will summarize some of it. So we'll go into that. And in this case, it turned it largely into a document as well also. And that's what you're seeing on the right-hand side. So I can download this, and I can upload it to Drive. I can do all kinds of cool stuff here. But long story short, let's go into the results that it came up with. And I'm going to do so from the documents perspective. But on the left-hand side, there's some summary and it extracted some key information as well too, which is great. So I'm just going to kind of read this stuff out to you guys. But like I mentioned before, I'm going to include this in the resources as well too. So if you want to see what I produced in greater detail, that will be available to you for free. You just have to sign up. Okay, so it's got an executive summary at the top. Basically, what it says is our problem came in not just within the top 5, but what it flagged in the top 3. And I would argue that that might actually be top 2 when I look at the details for the other problems. So, long story short, we're in a pretty good spot here, at least what it looks like so far. But I could see metrics here where the current law firms are losing anywhere from 10 to 50% of their billable revenue, which is a dramatic number. That would have, even if you did a small dent in that loss, that would make a huge impact to a lot of these law firms. Let's take a look at what it found in terms of the top challenges. Number 1, client acquisition and retention. Duh. That one's always pretty much the number 1 for almost every industry. Makes sense. Ours doesn't necessarily solve that problem, but it might help with it in terms of the clients that they currently have. So it's still related to revenue, basically. Number 2, economic pressure, inflation. Not much we can do about that. I understand, but I don't even know if we could help solve that one per se. That may be more related to number 1. And that's why I kind of think number 3 probably fits better in slot number 2, which makes it look even more attracting. But time tracking and billing, which is basically the best category for ours as well too. And then it also shared a percentage of firms affected, 20 to 55%, which is a pretty dramatic number. In fact, the widest range, or the numbers that go the highest in terms of any of the problems on this list. So far, so good. Looking like the data has provided us with some pretty good context in terms of the problem space here. Now, they go deeper and provide a ton of tremendous resources, which is super helpful. But it talks about like how much time they spend billing, the hours that they lose waiting to do it, and then how much they may lose depending on how long they wait to do this work. And that number just climbs over time. So the longer they wait, the greater the probability that they may lose billing for any of that revenue to begin with, which is, a big pain point. These quotes here are amazing and hilarious. And like I said before, this is the emotionally charged stuff that you can really start to get context for in terms of the size of the opportunity here. I love this first one. I have to read it. Billing can kiss my entire ass. That is obviously a very frustrated sentiment from our target market there. So a lot of really good stuff here. We can use these types of things in the copy if we eventually stand up a landing page to try to position our solution around solving this problem for our target market. Talks about why the problem persists. Basically, these are other things getting in the way, also maybe potentially some objections or things that as our prospects are checking out our solution, they may or may not want to learn more about in terms of like how do you handle for these scenarios. So we may need to work our way around that as we move forward. And then, as I promised as well too, one of the things we wanted to do in greater detail is better understand what the competitive landscape looks like. And it produced this itself as well also, which is great. I didn't even have to mention it. I was going to do a separate segment diving further into this anyway, but it kind of did it for me already. So we've got this available here as well, which is amazing. And it only took a couple of minutes to produce these results, which is fantastic. So here's what the competitive landscape looks like. I see some familiar names. Clio has been mentioned multiple times. It's very popular in the legal services industry. Some of these other ones I don't know, but they start to speak to what it is they're trying to do, and it also gives us context around what they're charging. So it found some of that as well too. Now, several of these are kind of enterprise priced, so we may or may not be able to get great detail around what those cost, but it starts to give us an idea for what they may be charging. If it's selling to the enterprise, which means much larger law firms, chances are it's pretty expensive. That's also a good thing for us. We want to have as many really expensive options trying to solve a similar problem on the market as possible. And again, just to reiterate, you might look at some of this detail for some of these options and say, oh, somebody already did it. That closes our opportunity. Completely disagree with that. That sentiment is just wrong. We want to know that there are people out there trying to solve this problem and even being successful in solving it. And the funding category in this table gives you some indication of just how successful, because people are basically raising millions. Clio's almost raised $1 billion. So that really gives you an idea that not only is this an area where firms and investment companies are willing to put significant resources, but it does give us some real comfort that this space is not just validated. People understand the problem context. People are out there trying to solve the problem in different ways. This all speaks to largely good news for us. Now, something we are going to have to figure out is how do we differentiate ourselves around these existing options? Is it a big enough blue ocean for us to do something similar and try to help folks that may or may not be aware of all these options? Because that's another common thing that happens when we try to think about like competitive options and stuff like that. But that's homework for us to do as part of a next step. But regardless, what we're seeing here so far is all pretty good news and crazy helpful context. Here we get down to what we might want to prioritize, and or it flags for us some of the potential challenges that we may be facing as we're moving forward in the process, as well as then it starts to provide us with some summary information. So key takeaways: problem is real, it's also validated, the market is active, there are adoption gaps. All of that speaks to opportunity for us, and the other challenges they may face as well too. So now, towards the end of this document, it even recommends for us some potential next steps, which is where we were going as well too. But regardless, that's helpful. Proceed with validation and what we might want to do as part of that as well too. And it also provided sources where it found the context that it included in the report. So really all good, helpful stuff and crazy valuable context for what it is we're trying to do. This is exactly what I was looking for as part of this process. So all right, so that's it for this video. Again, we did a super deep dive into the problem space to better understand the significance of this problem and the size of its opportunity. So far, I see largely promising results. So I would recommend we continue moving forward from here on to the next step. And I'm likely going to want to go a little bit deeper into the competitive research, some pricing, we're going to pick a name, all that kind of good stuff. So that's coming next. So If you want to make sure that you don't miss any of this content, subscribe because I'm going to be posting new videos as I'm making progress and building in public along with you when it comes to this SaaS project and how we're looking to build a better solution and bring that to market to help the legal services industry with solving some of these challenges. And I also mentioned previously, but in the description below, you'll find a link to the resources that I'm going to provide, which are going to include both what I am compiling related to the SaaS project that I'm working on. So this one that we've been talking about, as well as more general guidelines for you so that you can follow along and largely complete the exact same steps as you're managing your SaaS product build.